The rain had finally subsided, leaving behind humid air and the faint scent of Arizona desert soil lingering in the breeze. Jack Thompson, 55, was still struggling with a broken fence section when the familiar sound of footsteps made him look up. Max, his 7-year-old German Shepherd, had been missing for several hours, something that rarely happened since the pair had moved to this spacious property in the remote countryside. Jack's heart seemed to stop at the sight before him. Max hadn't returned alone. Behind the soaking wet, mud-covered dog stumbled two small, brownish-yellow creatures, also drenched and exhausted, lion cubs, no more than 6 to 8 weeks old, weak, frightened, and panting heavily. "Good heavens," Jack exclaimed, dropping his hammer. After 30 years working in wildlife rescue centers, he immediately recognized them as purebred African lions, an extraordinary and impossible find in this region. Max stopped about 10 paces from Jack, his eyes both exhausted and proud. The cubs collapsed to the ground, mud caked into their delicate fur. As Jack approached, something unexpected happened. Max growled softly, a sound he had never directed at his master before, and stepped between Jack and the cubs. The message was unmistakable. They were under his protection. Jack froze, then slowly backed away. His sharp eyes traced the muddy trail. Max must have followed the stream that had risen with the heavy rain. Years of experience told Jack that these cubs didn't belong here. They had come from somewhere else, under unusual, and likely dangerous, circumstances. He scanned the desert around him, searching for any sign of a lioness, but there was only the wind whistling through the chala bushes and the rush of water from the nearby stream. These cubs had been abandoned, or escaped. Somehow, Max had found them. Jack opened the shed door, now converted into his workspace, and motioned for Max. To his surprise, the cubs staggered to their feet and followed Max inside without hesitation. Pulling out his phone, Jack called Sarah Reeves, a former colleague at the Wildlife Protection Agency. "Jack, you won't believe this," Sarah said after hearing his story. "We just received a report. An illegal transport truck flipped while trying to cross the flooded stream about 5 miles from your place. Police found some animals, but many are still missing." The pieces fit together instantly. Wildlife traffickers, the plague Jack had fought against his entire career. The storm had given these cubs a rare chance at escape. When Sarah offered to pick them up immediately, Jack hesitated. Max had already lain down beside the cubs, licking the mud gently from their fur. "Sarah," Jack said carefully, "we have a problem. Max has adopted them." He explained the protective bond already forming between the dog and the cubs. Separating them too soon could harm both. With his years of expertise, Jack persuaded Sarah to let him keep them for a few days until they were strong enough for transport. 3 days, Jack, no more, and I'll need daily updates. Sarah finally agreed. Jack hung up and rummaged through his old cabinets. He pulled out formula bottles, a basic medical kit, and thick blankets. With the precision of a surgeon, he prepared a warm, safe corner of the shed. By the time he returned, Max had already tucked the cubs against the wall, keeping them safe and warm. That night, Jack named them Leo, the larger cub with sharp eyes and darker fur, and Theo, the smaller, more adventurous one. Both collapsed into sleep curled against Max, their tiny bodies rising and falling in rhythm with the dog's breathing. The first night passed in vigilance. Jack dozed in an armchair, waking at every sound, ready to intervene, but Max had everything under control. When Leo whimpered with hunger, Max nudged Jack awake, leading him to the prepared bottle. By dawn, Max had already taken Leo and Theo outside, guiding them in their business, something Jack never imagined a dog could teach lions. "All right, old friend," Jack whispered as they returned, "we have 3 days, let's make them count." Over the following days, Jack transformed the shed into a makeshift nursery. The cubs were dehydrated, hungry, and terrified, but miraculously uninjured. Max refused to leave their side, often skipping his own meals to care for them. Jack watched in awe as his dog coaxed them to eat, licked mud from their coats, and even guided them in gentle play. Leo and Theo quickly began mimicking Max, his posture, his sounds, even his movements. Jack recorded notes and videos, realizing he was witnessing a rare example of interspecies bonding. Max wasn't just protecting them, he was teaching them. By the third day, Sarah returned to check. She froze in amazement. The weak, frightened cubs she expected to see were gone. In their place were two lively, curious little lions shadowing Max's every move. "I've never seen anything like this," she admitted softly. "He's not just caring for them, he's teaching them to be lions." Jack nodded, though he knew time was running out. Sarah studied the scene, Max carefully guiding Theo to wash his face, while Leo crouched low, practicing a stalking lesson. Finally, she sighed. "I think we can extend their stay a little longer. Experts will want to see this." "But Jack, you know this can't be permanent. They're lions, not pets." "I know," Jack said quietly. A week became 2, then 3. The cubs grew quickly, their muscles forming the first hints of the powerful predators they would one day be. Jack converted his backyard into a safe play area, complete with logs to climb and a shallow pool for swimming. Then one afternoon, 6 weeks after Max first brought them home, Jack witnessed something extraordinary. Max had placed an old toy rabbit tied to a string in the center of the yard. The dog crouched low, signaling for Leo and Theo to mimic him. Step by step, Max demonstrated the stalk, pausing, waiting, lunging. Leo followed with clumsy determination. Theo, ever restless, darted about, ruining the stealth, yet Max remained patient, starting the lesson again. Jack, watching with wonder, slowly pulled the string. Leo grasped the lesson immediately, mimicking Max's every move with astonishing precision. Theo, as usual, was too excited to be patient. He kept springing out of hiding, startling the prey and causing it to escape. Jack tugged the string harder, but Max showed no disappointment. Instead, the old dog patiently led Theo back to the starting position, sometimes even carrying the mischievous cub gently by the neck, just as a mother lioness would with her young. After many attempts, Theo finally learned the lesson of patience. Soon, all three, Leo, Theo, and Max, successfully hunted the toy rabbit together. Jack documented everything, carefully recording each detail in the hope that one day this work might aid conservation and wildlife rehabilitation efforts. He realized that what Max was doing could provide remarkable new insights into how orphaned animals might be nurtured to one day return to the wild. Each day brought fresh lessons from Max. The dog seemed to understand that Leo and Theo weren't puppies, but lions, creatures of a different nature with instincts far from his own. He adapted his methods to suit their needs, encouraging natural predatory behavior through carefully designed games. Leo, with his focused and steady temperament, quickly became Max's star pupil. He learned to move in silence, to stalk without being detected, and to use the surrounding environment for camouflage. Theo, though more restless and impulsive, still absorbed vital lessons about teamwork and coordination in hunting. Perhaps the most surprising element of Max's teaching was his discipline. He established boundaries with remarkable gentleness, using soft growls to warn when play became too rough or when the cubs pushed past limits. As Leo and Theo grew stronger, Max introduced them to another lesson: control. It was an invaluable skill for two young lions destined to one day become apex predators. Sarah continued to visit, at first weekly, then every 2 weeks. She brought proper food and recorded the cubs' progress. Each time, she was astonished by how much they had grown and how deep their bond with Max had become. "Researchers wouldn't believe it if I didn't document everything," she said to Jack after watching Max teach the cubs to swim in a small pool he had dug in the yard. "This challenges everything we know about animal behavior." By the time Leo and Theo were 10 weeks old, something extraordinary began to happen. The cubs started teaching Max in return. Leo would lead him to places he wanted to explore, demonstrating instinctive hunting techniques as if inviting Max to learn. Theo, more social by nature, invented games that he eagerly coaxed Max into joining: chasing, jumping, tumbling in the dirt. Jack came to realize this wasn't a one-sided relationship. It was a genuine exchange, an unconventional family built on complex dynamics and mutual respect. Max wasn't just a substitute father, he had become part of their pride. Leo and Theo had accepted him as family. One evening, when the cubs were nearly 3 months old, Jack received a call from Sarah. Her tone was more serious than usual. "I've spoken with Dr. Rodriguez at the Sonoran Reserve," she said. "They've prepared a special area for Leo and Theo. They're big enough now to move to where they belong." Jack Jack's eyes drifted to the yard, where Max was showing the cubs how to stalk through desert bushes. The dog had become their patient, wise teacher, and the cubs had flourished under his care. But Jack knew Sarah was right. Leo and Theo were lions, not pets. They needed to live among their own kind, to learn to be real lions. Tomorrow, Sarah added softly but firmly, we'll come in the morning. That night, Jack couldn't sleep. He heard the cubs playing in the shed, Max growling gently when their play grew too noisy. Jack wondered if this was their last night together, and if Max somehow understood it. As much as he loved seeing the bond between dog and cubs, Jack knew the truth. Soon, they would be too large, too dangerous to keep at home, yet the attachment between them was undeniable, deep, and real. Restless, Jack came up with an idea. The next morning, he called Sarah with a bold proposal, a gradual transition involving Max. I want us to convince the reserve to try a special program, he explained. Max and I will be part of Leo and Theo's reintegration process. We'll bring them for short visits, let them get used to the reserve, to other lions, while still maintaining their bond with Max. Sarah was skeptical, but after reviewing Jack's notes and videos from the past 3 weeks, she began to see the potential. She promised to raise the idea with the reserve authorities. A week later, good news arrived. The Wildlife Reserve agreed to test Jack's plan. With his expertise and the extraordinary evidence of Max's influence, they saw a rare research opportunity in studying lion development shaped by cross-species nurturing. The transition began immediately. Jack and Max escorted Leo and Theo to the reserve for short visits. At first, the cubs clung to Max, wary of their new surroundings, but with Max's steady encouragement, they began to explore the larger habitat and even interact with other lions. What amazed Jack most was Max's adaptability. He didn't try to hold the cubs back. He seemed to understand his role, to help them integrate into their new world. He guided them from a distance, stepping in only when necessary. Researchers were stunned. They documented everything, fascinated by Max's emotional intelligence and the cubs' rapid adjustment. Despite being raised by a dog, Leo and Theo retained their lion instincts, and perhaps even carried unique skills from Max's teachings that no lion could have given them. After 4 months of persistence, Leo and Theo had fully adapted to life at the reserve. They were no longer the tiny, frightened creatures Max had carried home from the mud, but healthy, strong, confident young lions. Though they blended into the pride, researchers noted subtle differences, quirks that might forever link them to the lessons they learned from Max. Impressed by Jack's involvement, the reserve invited him to serve as an advisor for a new program exploring the use of dogs in raising orphaned wildlife. The story of Max and the lion cubs became a groundbreaking case study, reshaping how people viewed cross-species bonds. During one final visit, on a drizzly afternoon, Jack and Max stood by the fence watching Leo and Theo play in the mud with other lions. They had become everything they were meant to be. When Max barked softly, both cubs froze, then lifted their heads. Recognition flashed in their eyes. Moments later, they bounded toward the fence, not with aggression, but with joy, like the playful cubs they had once been. Jack felt tears sting his eyes, not from sadness, but from the profound truth unfolding before him. Real love isn't about holding on, but about letting go, so those you love can grow into the best version of themselves. Max, standing tall at his side, seemed to understand. He gave Leo and Theo one last, steady look, then turned away, ready to go home. His work was finished. He had raised them, guided them, and now he knew when to let them go. Driving back through the desert, Jack placed his hand gently on Max's head. "You did well, old friend," he whispered. The dog leaned into his touch, eyes fixed on the horizon, where the sun was setting behind the mountains, a quiet promise of new beginnings for all of them.
If this tale moved you, if you felt the tension, the heartbreak, and the triumph, please support our channel by hitting the like button and subscribing. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring more thrilling, emotional, and inspiring stories your way. Leave a comment below and let us know what you think. Do you believe dogs have an extraordinary sixth sense? Share your thoughts and personal stories with us. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.